Guys, we're gonna try this again because I just tried to record this video and it shut off on me. Hey, it's time for a story time. This was requested by one person, in person, by my little cousin. She really wanted to hear the story, so here it goes. This is the story of Frederick and Florence. This will be more about Frederick than Florence, but Florence still plays a little bit of a key role in this story. And also, Frederick and Florence are names I came up with as to not use the real names because I believe in keeping the anonymity. Is that the word? Anonymity? I'm not sure, but keeping the identity a secret. So that way I'm not like putting somebody on blast and they're just like, oh my god, this video was about you. Which I'm assuming somebody's going to watch this that knows him and is going to be like, hey, this video was about you and your new boo. Just so you know. That's okay. Send it to him. Let him watch it. I don't care. But anyway, on to the story time. We're going to start with when I met Frederick. Frederick and me met in the hospital. I was in there for depression. And so we started talking and everything. And at this time, I was not identifying as female. I was still identifying as male. And so I saw Frederick. I almost said his real name. Like, came to mind. And I was just like, wait. No. But I saw Frederick and I was like, oh, wait, he's kind of cute. And I didn't know he had a girlfriend at the time, so I'm not a homewrecker. But, so, at the time, I just kind of was like, I kind of woke up, or we were doing our little morning routine things in the hospital, and, we were just kind of sitting there, and I was just like, hey, I have a question. And he was just like, what's up? And I was just like, are you straight or gay or bi? And he was just like, I'm none of those. And I was just kind of like, what? Because at the time also I didn't know much about pansexuality and asexuality and all that stuff. So, but he was just like, I'm pansexual. And I was just like, oh, okay, cool. That's great. I was just like, I think you're really cute. And he was just like, I have a girlfriend. And I was just like, damn. Okay. Thanks for listening to my speech. I'm going to go now that I've made a fool of myself. But we stayed friends throughout, when we were in the hospital. It was me, him, and a few other people that we'd sit and eat together and laugh together and do stuff. Even though he stayed asleep most of the time. Like, I don't even know how I figured out that I even liked him in the first place because he was asleep about 80% of the time that we were in there. But, which was not his fault. They, drugged him, basically. He finally got that fixed, by the way, but still. But after we got to the hospital, I stayed in contact with him and, one other person that I was in the hospital with. I tried to stay in contact with another, but she moved back to China, and so I don't really see her or talk to her that much often. And the other girl that I've been trying to stay in contact with, I made a new Facebook, and I haven't added her yet because I can't remember her last name. But, yeah. But after we got to the hospital, we stayed in contact. And then, months after, at least 4 or 5 months after, we'd stayed in so much contact that I'd started forming kind of a crush thing on him. And so I was just like, hey, I'm still into you. Just saying. And he was just like, well, that actually might work because, I'm not sure exactly 100% sure how this conversation went, so Frederick, if you see this video and I don't get the conversation right word for word, don't come on my comments or whatever, or don't be sitting there and going around blasting me, sitting there talking about, that's not how that conversation went, because it was over a year ago and it's over a text message. So, no, I'm not going to remember this conversation word for word. But it basically went something about how, I really like you, and he was just like, well, I'm with Florence right now. I was about to put somebody on blast. And then we just kind of kept talking, and it just kind of got to the point where he was just like, well, to be honest, I was actually thinking about breaking up with her anyway because of the long distance, and I don't really like it that much. And I was just like, well, if you ever do, I'm here. And he was just like, okay, cool. And about a week later, I got a text message saying, hey, I broke up with Florence, and I'd like to give us a try. And so we tried, thinking we would get to see each other eventually because we were only an hour and a half away from each other. But a couple weeks gone by, and it just kind of got too much for him, I guess. I mean, I was doing pretty good because I still kind of had a hope, but he was just like, well, is this really working out? Because we never really do get to see each other, so it's basically the same situation I was in beforehand. And I was just like, yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, I didn't really like breaking up with him, but, I mean, I can't make him stay. So, a couple weeks went by. We talked as friends once and again. I tried to stay friends with him, but he didn't really want to text me that much. I guess he felt awkward about talking to an ex, but whatever. But a couple weeks went by, and finally I got another text message from him. And basically he was saying, or he said, at first it would start off as a normal conversation. He was like, hey, and I was like, hey, what's up? And, you know, it was just normal chit-chat. And finally he was just like, okay, well, here's the deal. I lost my job, and I'm going to get kicked out of my place. And, you know, and my mom won't let me move back in with her, and all this other stuff. And so it just got down to, I was like, you know what? Sure, you can come up here and you can stay with me for a little while. And I was, honestly, it was supposed to be as friends, but that didn't apparently work out. But he stayed down there where he was for a few more days, you know, trying to get he had a car, but it didn't have tires, so he used the very last bit of money that he got in to put tires on his car so he could get up to where I was. And so over the next few days that he was still down where he was, and, you know, before he officially moved in, we slowly started romantically talking again. And then when he finally got back up to where, or not back up, but when he finally got up to where I was, it just kind of full blown went into a relationship. We woohooed on the first night that he was there. And I'm sorry, Mom, if you're watching this. I really am, because I know you don't like me talking about this, but I'm just trying to get into the story. So, you know, it went on for a little while when we were just dating, and, you know, I was introducing him to all my friends because he was in my area, and I was just like, this is Frederick, you know, I keep saying, you know, a lot. This is a drinking game. Every time I say, you know, take a shot. Unless you're under 21. I do not endorse that. But it was just kind of introducing him to people, introducing him to family, introducing him to friends, and, you know. And he was looking for a job and everything, so he could, like, basically he basically moved in because we were dating. So he was going to start helping out with bills and stuff. It got to the point where we were talking about a month or two after. We started talking about marriage and family and everything, you know, strictly ideas. What are you whining over? There's a dog over here, and she's whining, and I don't know why. But it was strictly theoretical at this point. But it just kind of, we kept talking about it for a month, and finally he was just like, hey, do you want to make the engagement thing official? And I was just like, sure. And so he went and got a little temporary ring from Walmart, and, you know, I didn't mind it. Okay, I'm not gonna say, oh, it was a shitty ring, and you know, I hated it. No, it was a nice ring. It was a nice looking ring. It wasn't perfect material, but it was a nice looking ring, and I picked it out myself. So I mean, and, you know, I thought it was a nice gesture, and it let everybody know, hey, I'm off the market, back off. And, you know, I was happy with it. I fully intended on keeping it for a while, actually. So, you know, it finally got to the point, I think before that, though, I met his parents, and I can't remember if I met his parents before or after we got engaged, but, you know, his family seemed to like me. I'm just going to put this out there. There were some Facebook posts that occurred after he moved out that I saw that I was just like, okay, so clearly you didn't like me as much as I thought. Yeah, that happened. But his family seemed to like me. And, you know, my mom really liked him too. Until he did all the things that I'm going to say later on in the video. What? But, anyway, it finally got to Christmas, and, you know, we went up to his parents' Christmas Eve. to go celebrate with them. Because we had 2 Christmases. Well, yeah, 2 Christmases. Because, you know, we had his parents and then we had my family. And, so, you know, that night, you know, he gave me one of the presents that he was so desperate to give me. It was really one of those moving diamond necklaces, which I got really upset when I lost. He didn't seem too upset about it for some reason, even though those were really expensive necklaces, but I was upset. And then the next day, when it was time for my family, he gave me a jewelry box. And when he first sat the present down, it was wrapped, so I didn't know it was a jewelry box at first. And he just kind of like kneeled down in front of me, and I was just like, "What are you doing? Get up!" And he was just like, "No, just open the present." And so I just was like, "Okay, whatever." And my mom was over here recording, so that was even more. I was like, "What the hell?" And so I unwrapped, and I was just like, "Okay, it's a jewelry box. It's a really nice jewelry box. Thanks, babe." And he was just like, "No, open the jewelry box." So I opened up the box, and there and behold is a very nice black diamond engagement ring. And I got emotional, cried a little bit. He got emotional. He got to the point where he was a little bit speechless. He couldn't even, you know, because he was intending to say, "Will you marry me?" But he got so emotional and speechless that he just kind of sat there looking at me smiling, and I'm just like, "Oh my God." And he's just like, and we hugged it out and got it all on camera, and he posted it all over Facebook and was so happy, and I was just like, eh. And then, you know, going through the whole family thing, you know, it was just constant bouts of depression and trying to cheer him up. And, you know, because I was depressed about it too, but I was trying to be strong for him because I knew his depression was a little bit stronger than mine. Because I know what it's like to actually, I mean, my depression did have the points to where I was so depressed I couldn't help him because of the fact that I got depressed over the fact that I couldn't carry my own child. I think I talked about this at some point. I think I talked about it on a live stream on Facebook. But it just got really hard there for a few months, and then in January is when it started getting really bad, and I started getting really worried, and which made my depression flare up even more, and so it was just back and forth. But finally in February we had a happy moment when we got married, February 20th. I still remember it. I lost my train of thought. It was a really nice ceremony. All of our family was there, both of our moms, his dad, my grandma, a couple friends that were really close, so they were basically family. But yeah, it was a really nice ceremony and everything. And, you know, and the very next day, because beforehand, like a week beforehand, he went to the doctor and got a pregnancy test done. And so the very next day after the wedding, we got a call saying, "Hey, you're pregnant." And so, you know, it was just kind of like a happiness overload. Like, we'd gone through all these months of struggle and depression, all for, like, within 2 days for our happiness levels to, like, shoot through the roof. It was amazing. Like, it was perfect. Everything was going exactly according to plan. And we were happy. We were extremely happy. And so, you know, we went the next couple months, you know, all back and forth to OBGYNs and baby doctors and shopping for baby clothes. And it was really nice, you know, finally starting and planning for a family. And then I fucked up royally. I can admit this over the internet because this is probably going to piss a lot of you off. I'm glad I did what I did. I sent a X-rated picture to a guy. Regretted it afterwards. Never talked to the guy again. And it was a one-time thing. But I'm glad I did it. And I'm glad he found it. And I'm glad he left. Also, things I'll explain later on in the video. He found it. He left the house for a little while. Went and hung out with some friends and stuff like that. And so I was just kind of sitting in the house, like, trying to get him to come home and all that good stuff. And finally he came home. And, you know, we tried to work things out. We did. And, like, I mean, I tried extremely hard. I was walking on eggshells. I was trying to be the perfect wife. I was cooking for him every single time he wanted me to. I was doing anything I possibly could. And we had basically got to the point where both of our Facebook were on both of our phones. On my phone, his Facebook and my Facebook was linked up, and on his phone, my Facebook and his Facebook was linked up. Everything was connected. I got looking on his Facebook profile, and Florence was magically unblocked, because when he first moved in, and she was doing all this stuff, like trying to convince me that he was still in love with me and everything, we both blocked her out of our lives, period. And I went on his Facebook and found that she was unblocked, and I didn't want to insinuate anything because, walking on eggshells, but I was just like, baby, why'd you unblock Angel? Just curious. And he was just like, oh, my mom said that she was going through some stuff, and I was just curious. I was just like, okay. Shouldn't have believed that. I went to the mental hospital trying to get my depression under control, because after that I felt extremely guilty. My depression went through the roof. I was to the point where I didn't want to live anymore. I didn't care that there was a child on the way. I didn't care that I was still married. I didn't care about any of that. I wanted to die, period. And there was nothing that was going to change that. And I knew there was something wrong with that. I'm happy to admit the fact that I caught myself. I almost killed myself over him, which would have really been bad. So I went to the hospital, and they put me into I think they call it like 10-4. No, it's not 10-4. It's like, I can't remember what the code's called. But, so, and I was sitting here texting while I'm sitting in the hospital bed, because I had basically, what had happened is it was like 3 a.m. Everyone was asleep. I took my mom's car in the middle of the night, took myself to the hospital, checked myself in, all that good stuff. And I texted him as soon as I got to the hospital. I was just like, hey, babe, I was feeling really suicidal. There's something seriously wrong with me. I'm going to check myself into the hospital, see if there's anything they can do for me. Ooh, don't fall. And instead of being happy that I was trying to stop myself from killing myself, he got angry with me and started blessing me out and all these different things. And I didn't understand it. But I was just, it really hurt. It didn't more or less make me angry more than it hurt. But I acted angry towards him, but it hurt really bad. I was sitting in the hospital bed crying because I'm trying to understand why he would prefer me to stay home and feel suicidal than to go and check into a hospital and try to get better. And especially since we have a child on the way. But eventually got to the point where he was just like, you know what, whatever. And, and so I went to the hospital, and, the first night I was there, he called me, and we were talking calmly. So that's why the next part came really as a shock to me. But he was just doing all these things, started talking about, it's okay, baby, everything's gonna be okay, I promise I love you, and you're gonna come back home, and I'm still gonna be here, and we're just gonna be happy, and all this other stuff. And for the first time in like 2 or 3 weeks, I was happy. I was smiling again, because he told me he loved me, which had been a long time since he said, because of what happened, which I understood. And the next day, I woke up, and I got a phone call from my mom. He left. He packed up all his stuff, and he went back to Florence. And I was destroyed. I was devastated. I called him, and I was asking him why he left and everything. And he went from the previous night being so loving and caring and hopeful to this cold-hearted, cynical bastard, basically. And I didn't understand it, which just hurt even more. And so I finally got out of this hospital and went back home. 3 days later, went back to the hospital because I actually did attempt suicide, because my husband just left with my child, and he told me basically I was never going to see him again. And basically, I'm not going to go through every single month and everything, but basically it was just constantly battling with him, fighting with him, arguing with him, trying to get some kind of even custody with my child, and trying to get divorced and work out all these things. And Finally, him and Florence blocked me on everything. It got to the point where they blocked me on everything. Facebook, text. There was no humanly possible way I could reach them unless I took somebody else's phone and texted them. And so, a few months ago, 2-3 months ago, I found out the baby was not mine. He had... One second. Sorry, somebody came knocking at the door. But, I forgot where I was at. But basically, the baby wasn't mine. What had happened was, the 2 weeks before we got married, Florence came down to visit, and they were sleeping together in a hotel room. The whole entire 2 weeks. And he didn't get pregnant by me. No. He got pregnant by her. So, basically at this point, all I'm really wanting from him is a divorce, so I can finally officially have him out of my life. I really don't care about him anymore. And that's back to the point why I said I'm glad I did what I did. If I hadn't cheated on him, and him left and gotten back with Florence, I might have never found out that he did that. He might have continued to do that. I would have been taking care of a child that wasn't mine. I've been stuck in a house with somebody who didn't really love me. But, hey, you live and you let go. But, yeah, that's that story time. Like, subscribe. I'll leave all my usernames and stuff to my other social media below in the description. Comment what you guys want to see next. This video was way longer than it was supposed to be. I am so sorry. It's like over 20 minutes. I am extremely sorry, but there's a lot to tell. But hey, I love all you guys, and share this video. Share my page, period. Just try to get people watching, you know, try to get these numbers up, baby. So yeah. Later.